Creative Journeys is your go-to podcast for all things creativity. I'm your co-host, Dave Petrosky, chair of the Communication, Media, and Screen Studies Department.
And I am your co-host, Melanie Uribe, Venezuelan designer and educator. This is the podcast about creativity, what it is in its many forms, and how we can become more creative in our everyday lives.
All right, welcome back to Creative Journeys. We're happy to be back.
Hello, everyone.
We've taken a couple of weeks off between episodes, so I hope that everybody's okay with that.
And hasn't forgotten about us.
Yeah, you haven't forgotten about us. But we're back. We have a guest with us today, Andrew Parzyck, who is a faculty member at Southern, as well as an alumnus or alum.
I never know how to say it.
Yeah, it's an alum from Southern, and actually from at the time Communication Department.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah. Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
and then we'll talk a little bit.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. This is my first podcast ever.
Woohoo.
So, like you said, Dave, I graduated Southern with my communication degree in interpersonal communication in 2009. From there, I went to get my master's degree at our sister institution, Central Connecticut State University, in counseling, specifically for higher education. And then I just finished my PhD at Kansas State University in adult education, adult learning.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
leadership.
fantastic.
So, So I graduated last December.
Oh, we should talk. Because
Yeah.
I'm doing my doctorate right now.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
In ed leadership, higher ed leadership.
Okay.
But I have so many comments and things that I want to share about adult learning.
I would love to
That's
talk
what I
about
focused on over the summer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I would love to talk about that.
Fantastic.
Yes, anytime.
Conversation off podcast.
Exactly. To be continued, right?
Or well, maybe not. I mean, maybe we could rope it back in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So things are rolling along with us. We're nearing the end of a semester. And
So exciting.
yes,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's very interesting because I think the fall semester, the first half of the semester seems so slow, and then you hit the midterm, and it's like you blink and the semester's over.
Very true.
Yes.
And part of it's because of Thanksgiving break and all that kind of stuff, but it creates all kinds of different issues and friction and all that kind of stuff, especially for the students, because they're trying to make their way, understand what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And, I think that we're still in the process of coping with the adjustment to returning to some semblance of regularity in terms of our classrooms experiences and that kind of stuff. I mean, COVID really threw us, and I mean, we practically mention it every episode, where, there's some residual of COVID. And it's either led to something that's really great or it's created problems and that kind of stuff. And I thought that we might talk about like a couple of the things that we're encountering in the classroom right now, that's sort of curious and not necessarily something that we would expect. But I think that it's something that's become a little bit more common with students post-COVID. And the biggest one, and I'll just share my anecdote, and then I'd love to hear what the two of you say, especially since you're interested in adult learning and that sort of stuff, because this is, what we're talking about. Because, when we really think about it, and we've talked about this before, in previous times that we've gotten a chance to talk, is the fact that, we're really teaching adults. And, when we talk about pedagogy is basically education of children. And what we're really talking about in higher ed is more, andragogy.
Andragogy, yeah.
And so it's a different sort of animal, but at the same time, we're faced with the fact that some of our students are coming in with varying levels of experience and maturity level that we might have experienced years ago, but they're not coming in with that same sort of thing. So in some cases, folks have said, well, it seems like the students are just kids. And, certainly age gaps and all that kind of thing fit in. But the scenario that I wanted to share with you is I have a design class that I'm teaching. And, I had, sort of two things that were going on with the class. One was that, I had students that were taking the class that are very computer apprehensive and that sort of thing. And that was the sort of the beginning of the class. And I'm trying to get them used to things and all that kind of stuff. And then I had some students that were transfers that transferred in, started to take the class. A couple of them are still in the class and tested things out. But there was one student in particular that was just like, I did all this already. Like I don't need this sort of intro kind of stuff, right? I'm ready to move on. Dropped the class, and he's much more happy. And so everything worked out for him. But the issue that I had was that students seem to be sort of giving up very quickly. If they hit any resistance, that they're just stopping, not working, following through on a project or something like that. The second thing, which was most distressing this week, was I have a class. The class has 15 students in it, but in my attendance, I only had 5 show up for class that day. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I deal with that? Like, what do I do? And I mean, maybe. The simple thing is to just say, okay, well, you're going to be penalized or whatever, that kind of thing. But I don't think it's that simple, because a lot of our students that are the students that aren't showing up are ones that don't seem to care about. They need the most help, and they don't necessarily care about a penalty at this point, because in their eyes, they've been penalized all semester
already,
right? Because they have to, they're being forced to do things that they don't want to do.
Right.
But so I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, do
you have an absence policy?
That's my question too.
I give points for attendance, right? And basically they sign in. It's online, and it basically keeps track of like when they sign in. So if they sign in within the first 10 minutes, they get basically full credit for the points. And then if they are after that time, then it's half points. But I don't have like an attendance count where I say, okay, if you miss this many classes, you're out.
Okay.
So it's not really penalized; it's more of incentives.
Yes. Yeah. And I've been trying to do that.
Right.
And that's something that I actively chose, and that maybe that's something that's part of it, is that they think that it's not that important. But at the same time, they appreciate the flexibility of not having, and a lot of them are dealing with anxiety issues and all that kind of stuff, and that might be part of the reason why they're stopping out of the class. But I don't know what necessarily how to adjust.
I wonder if this is an opportunity for you to do at end of the semester quick survey to see what the students think and feel about that particular aspect of your class. I've never tried it. I don't necessarily believe in not taking points away with attendance. So I do have a policy. They're allowed up to 3 absences. And anything beyond that is minus points. So 3 absences, they can get an A. If they have 4, their max grade is going to be a B, and then so on. It is on my syllabi. But I do make it very clear at the beginning of the semester that we're all professionals, we're all adults, and communication is important. So if they communicate with me about why they're not coming to class, it doesn't count as an absence.
Yeah.
So it only counts as an absence if there is no communication and I just don't know
Right.
why they
Right.
didn't show up.
Right.
And it could be as simple of, I just need a mental health day.
Yeah.
I have a headache or I have a family emergency. It could be anything. I don't need to have a paper excuse from like a medical appointment or a court document because we all have a lot going on.
Right.
But communication is important in the professional world, and I think it's important to instill that in all of the classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if they have, most of our students have part-time jobs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't do that at their part-time jobs.
Correct.
Right? Because they will get fired and they need that
Yes.
job. Why do they do it with us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I do the same thing with my attendance policy. It's very similar as yours. And at the beginning of the semester, when I have these conversations or when I talk about this in the syllabus portion of the course, I mentioned to them that, one of the things I want to do is prepare you for the real world, right? One of the things is you are in the real world right now. And we kind of, in a way, as instructors, right, we know higher education, we know, college, universities, how we work and what we really want our students to do well, right, beyond our course. And some of us are working other positions in the real world. My other job, too, I don't know if you knew this, Melanie, but I'm also a flight attendant, too. So I do.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
Okay, sidebar.
Full-time.
Sidebar.
Yeah.
Maybe last week, I had this conversation with my husband that what am I going to do with my time after I'm done with the doctorate?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to relax. I have a problem.
I'm the same way. I get it.
And I said, what if I become a flight attendant? I
You
can
should
do this.
We need to talk.
Yes.
We're hiring a lot. I work for a major U.S. airline. Not going to disclose, but we could talk.
Okay.
But
More
for sure.
things on our talk.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is why I love having guests.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? But we have, in that's real world, right? We have an attendance policy, right? And you don't show, yes, if you have so many absences a year, okay, but one of the things is you do need some type of doctor's note. If a couple of years ago, I had a funeral to go to. My manager needed, and I had a trip, and I wasn't able to work it, which was fine, but they needed verification. So that's a funeral home note. So and a lot of people don't realize, a lot of students, when I say that, you can get a funeral home note, and they're like, oh, that's kind of morbid. I'm like, yeah, but that's the reality too, right? That's the reality of this real world that that you will be in, or you're actually in currently, right? I have seen colleagues who, they have so many absences, or they don't have a doctor's note or FMLA or whatever that looks like, and they're terminated from the job. And it's really discouraging, but that's the reality. That's a corporation, right? And in that corporation, their mentality is irreplaceable, right? Because there's so many people who want that. But yeah, so that's why I kind of share my story. I think it's important to share that type of outside story with students, because that's ultimately what they want to do. Maybe not a flight attendant, but they want to be in the real world, right?
Sure.
But I think the three of us have this mentality where we want to connect with our students.
Yes.
So we share a lot of our personal life to help with that connection and not make it seem like this is a foreign place that you just come in the classroom and it's just rules.
Exactly.
Well, and that's one of the things that I used to have a very strict attendance policy, which was somewhat even more stringent than what you're. Well, actually, it was a lot more stringent than what you were talking about. It would be a certain number based on the number of class meetings. It would be like about 15% of the class, and if you missed more than that, which, for a class that meets twice a week, it was basically 4 absences. And if you miss 4 absences, you failed the class, which is very draconian.
I have failed a student for missing classes.
And,
I have too.
And it became such a burden. And what I realized was that what I was doing was basically evaluating the students based on compliance rather than what they're learning. Right. And my learning objectives are not make the students understand what time management is, or that attendance is important and that sort of thing, right?
Is this what level is this class?
200 level.
Okay.
Right. But I do it. This is across like all of my classes. The 400 level, same sort of policy.
Yeah.
But part of what I've been thinking about is like, what is it that we're doing as instructors, right? When we're trying to be, and this is where sort of the creativity comes in, because we're sort of bound by this real world situation, and we're trying to get them to understand something that's authentic. But our obligation is also to help them to learn as best as possible. So if they're not able to understand one thing that's sort of the side thing, and it's not the explicit outcome that we're looking for a class, should that be the criteria for us to evaluate them poorly on the thing that they're supposed to be learning, right? And I have a really big issue with that, because and it's evolved over time. I didn't, like I said, I used to think about this very differently, but then what I started to understand, especially when I became department chair and that kind of stuff, is that a majority of the student complaints that I would get were from students that were complaining about attendance policy rather than whether they were learning the stuff that they were supposed to learn, right? And isn't that weird? Like, isn't that like sort of the antithesis? I know the word. I know what I was trying to say, but but it's the opposite, essentially, of what we're trying to do, right? And I'm trying to make my policies in my classes match with the way that I actually think about it.
But I don't think our students in that level understand the importance yet of what they're learning. And they won't see it until maybe their senior year or even after they graduate. So early on, they get so focused on the little details like that.
Sure.
Like, this professor is making me come to class every week or every day.
Yeah.
And yes, but how are you going to learn? How can I help you?
Right.
How can I support you? How can I mentor you?
Yeah.
And we teach classes that are very technical,
Sure.
right? So like, if you don't show up to class, you only come when the project is due. I also never saw you work on the project. So how do I know that you really do know the skills and you can handle the creative thinking and the problem solving and all the technical aspects of the assignment, of the softwares and all of that?
Right.
So it's challenging.
I think it kind of goes back to like development. I kept thinking of like adult education, adult learning, right? I mean, a majority of our students are emerging adults, right? Where we sometimes struggle as like from instructors and administrative, we want to treat our students like adults, but most of them are traditional college age students, right? So typical 18, 19, 20, 21 by maybe senior year. So what they know currently, right, just like adult learning, they come in with prior knowledge, prior learning, prior experiences. What they know is pre-K through 12, right? So there's an attendance policy. I have to come to school. I have to go to class because if I don't, I'm not going to graduate high school. Or I have to maybe find other ways of getting my GED later on, or dropping out, or doing whatever it is. And I think for students currently, there's some kind of expectation. I think it's just, in a way, like learned behavior. Like, okay, if I don't come to class, I'm probably going to be penalized for this. Or, I'm trying to make that understanding, like, I'm an adult, I pay for college, and it's my grade, so I know I'm probably going to get an F if I don't show up, but I'm just going to try to submit assignments to kind of under the table and see if the instructor grades it. I mean, that's kind of something that's occurring with me right now in one of my classes. Is I have a student who just stopped attending. And yes, I had to do a little report, on that. But it wasn't until I think yesterday, I haven't heard from the student at all, but I go on Blackboard and all of a sudden I see all the little exclamation points that they submitted something. And I'm like, I'm not going to grade this because I told you in an email, before I grade something, I need to have a conversation with you, right? So I think that's kind of like just that whole going back to learning development. I think that's that whole learning development, trying to make meaning and doing the meaning making, right? And testing their boundaries, from showing up to class just to or just to submitting things online. One of the conversations when I do get to have with students who actually do reach out to me is, this isn't an online class. We do have online classes. So if you wanted to take an online class, take the online class. But this is an in-person class. You're missing most of the content. You're missing most of the conversations. That's the learning. That's why I personally have the attendance policy, is because if you're not here, you're not here, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to know you're not going to gain anything. So I think that's kind of, I don't know, that's just something I've been kind of playing with for a while.
Going back, did any of them contact you?
Two.
Only
Two.
2 out of the 10.
Yeah.
Do we know if there was something going on campus? Any activity
Not that I'm aware of.
it would have been more fun to attend to that activity than go to class?
Yeah. No. It was just a surprise, right? And we've gotten to a point where we're basically their projects that they're doing, like every class they present some project. So they work in small groups, but they coordinate who's going to present on which days, and so they're doing the projects independently. But then they are, each group picks somebody to present for the day, and that's basically how they're generating their points at the end of the semester. So, the last 10 classes of the semester, that's what we do in the class. And it's, basically, the first half of the semester is basic skills and all that kind of stuff. You have to do tutorials, all that kind of stuff. And then the second half of the semester is, okay, now apply everything, right? So that's the mode that we're in here. And it seems like as soon as we got to the point where it was, here's your turn to do something, they stopped.
So interesting. Do you have those days specified in the syllabus?
Yes. And I have, because of the way that I structure my class, I give them all the assignment explanations, ahead of time. So it's, at the beginning of the semester, they have all of the assignments, and they have all of the due dates for the assignments. And then, if we need to change dates and that kind of stuff, we talk about that as a class. But, part of it is giving them agency. So that's what I'm trying to do in the class, is give them, for example, we have assignments that are definitely required, right? And they're sort of staged, right? So you have to do part 1 in order to be able to do part 2 and that kind of
like
thing.
Scaffolding.
It's a scaffolding kind of thing. And I'm trying to get them to understand the importance of good design process, right? Understand your situation first, do a little bit of research before you start brainstorming, that kind of thing. And then, when you brainstorm, you have to actively brainstorm and do sketches and that kind of stuff, so have a plan before you sit down at the computer. That's, the bottom line. And that's what I'm trying to train them how to do at the beginning of the semester. Yeah. What is also combined with that is that as we're doing these sort of scaffolding things, then there are optional assignments that they can do along the way to earn them additional points, right?
Do they do them?
Some do, yeah.
Because I struggle. My students never want to do extra credit.
Well,
really?
Yeah.
Part of it that
I'm shocked.
Yes,
I
I'm still shocked. Every semester I offer it, and maybe
I have something like I think it's over 30 optional assignments that they could possibly do, but there's a wide range of different things. Like, one might be like design a cereal box, or one might be like, okay, here's a new clothing line that's based on graffiti art. So what would what would a display be in store or something like that, different kinds of things just to get them to think about like, real situations and that kind of thing. I call them hands-on assignments, but they don't have to do them. But depending on what they're trying to learn, like each, there's some that are Photoshop focused, some that are Illustrator focused, that kind of stuff. But the thing that I found is that some of the students who are the ones that take advantage of it the most are the ones that are engaged the most. They're the higher performers in the class, right? They're always, and I don't think that that's necessarily different. The other thing is that I don't talk about them as extra credit. These are assignment. These are not alternative choices. These are, or things to
like
sort of be extra. It's not like you're getting an extra bonus or something like this. Right. No, this is your choice to do something to practice your skills, right? And that I think frames it a little bit differently for the students. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they all look at it as extra credit, and I don't have to do it. But the ones that do have things that they can put in their portfolio at the end, right? That are all things that aren't necessarily like sort of our planned assignments and that sort of thing, and that gives them some sort of sense of differentiation from other students and that sort of thing. So I mean, I've got lots of stuff that's kind of packed in, and I don't know whether that is causing sort of disengagement because there is too much flexibility or complexity to it, or whether it's more about the students are just disengaging or just not willing to, because it goes back to what I was saying earlier. What I found is that when the students are hitting resistance, they disengage.
I wonder too if it's just a miscommunication issue that they think because now it's the second half of the semester, it's time to apply it, that they just, in their mind, it's like, well, I can either do this from home or my dorm, or I can do this in class. Yeah. And maybe it could be a matter of just like, reiterating that you're supposed to be in class.
And showing the value, right? Because I think sometimes students get lost when because they're probably not taking just, I think we forget this too, right? They're not just taking our class. There's 5 other classes, right? Yeah. So I think sometimes they might get, like you said, they kind of maybe it's just reiterating the communication, right? And really understanding like this is a value to you, right? This is going to help you. This is a benefit for you.
And reminding them of the rules and guidelines of your class, because maybe another professor is very relaxed.
Yes.
And it's different, and they tend to think that all of their classes will be the same, or like I've had students, I'm sure I've said this before, but I had a student writing an evaluation that I kept him in the classroom like a prisoner. Yes. And, a lot of the conversations were like, but my other professors let me work from my dorm. Why don't you? Right? So they expect every single professor to cater to the ones that give them their favorite rules or things like that. So, that's one of the funniest things ever. But I say the but I say the communication issue because I have a lot of studio days.
Yeah, sure.
In the second half of the semester, and my classes work almost the same way. Like the first half is a lot of me lecturing, tutorials, little exercise, making sure they're grasping everything on this new software in the class. And then after midterms is let's apply everything. Mm-hmm. Let's just spend time working. And they sometimes tend to think that they can just do this from home and then just send me their file for preview or something like that. And I have to remind them the only times where it's okay to not show up for class is if I say so the class before, or if I make the studio day optional, and I will always tell them the class before.
Right. Right. And, I think, there's 2 thoughts that I have about this. One is that my reminders and that kind of stuff are sort of contingent on them coming to class. So the students that have been coming to class, they know all the policies and they understand it, and they're, that it gets reinforced all the time.
Right.
But then I have students, which were among the ones that just didn't show up.
Yeah.
Like I had a whole thing like that I had to talk to the students and say, oh, you need to come to class,
Mm-hmm.
but you guys are already here.
Right.
It's the ones that are not here that need to be hearing what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that that's, part of the dilemma that I have is that there's like this failure, nah, I don't know if I would call it failure, but just like this disconnect where it seems okay to just let it go, and that you're just things are just going to magically fall together.
Yes.
Right.
It's almost like out of sight, out of mind, and hope, right? Like we hope
Yes.
it's going to.
Yeah, magical
Maybe I'll get
thinking,
an A.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will happen.
Yes.
I'll get a
Yeah.
B. I'll pass, and I'll move on, right?
Yeah.
And like kind of like taking things into consideration, like hoping that my instructor is going to take everything into consideration. I did really well in the beginning of the semester, and I just stopped. Right?
Well, and
It's not
here's
how it works.
that's also, so that was the second thing, was that like what what I've been doing with these project pitches is that they only get points if they're in class, so they can't make a submission and then not come to class. So I won't grade it if they're not in class
Okay.
that day.
Yeah.
Right? So they might not get a chance to present it in class. But if they're not there, then they don't get anything from it.
Do you
And
ever
so,
have students who are absent for that class and asked to make it up?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
yeah,
I've done that before, where I'll give a point for in-class participation, and I do a lot of group work, like think, pair, share stuff, and everybody has like their own worksheet or their own assignment, and I went back to actual physical worksheets where they have to write something. So because I want them to engage, realistically, I don't really care what they put on the paper. What I'm happy about is that they actually like spoke and they talked. There's like communication, and I'm eavesdropping, of course, and they're talking about the content, right? They're talking about what they're supposed to talk about. I'm happy with that. This is just at the end of it, we all have a full group discussion, right? They have to turn their paper in. There's, like some will write paragraphs, some will write, bullet points, some will draw pictures. I'm okay with that. I like that. And then they'll get the participation point for the day. But then I have students who are like, oh, can I make this up? You weren't there. You missed the entire thing, right? Like,
Right.
I don't really care about the paper. I mean, I care about the paper, but I don't care about the paper. I care about making meaning. But this kind of, in a way, anchors them in the class, right, when they have to put something on paper.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know. I'm trying to think about making up assignments, and I don't think I'm a flexible or good professor about it. I'm definitely
Sure,
the
you're
ones
fine.
that are like, no, you
Sure, you're
cannot
great.
make it up. You lost the points, right?
Right.
But as I think about it, a lot of my group assignments are very experiential. So like I have guests invited to come to campus, or like the mock interviews. You can't make that up.
You can't make that up.
No. So if you
Right.
missed it, you missed 10
You missed it.
points.
Right.
And it's a lot of points.
Yes.
And that's sort of the way that I approach things. Now I've gotten to the point where I don't subtract points. Like I'll have a rubric, and that gives for assignments and that kind of thing. So I mean, in a way, that's subtracting points for levels of performance and that sort of thing. But when it comes down to like student grades, everything that they hand in earns them points, right? So it's always adding points in. So there are certain instances where I allow them to do resubmissions and that sort of thing, right? And my class is very gamified, so
I love
that's so so that's part of it. And I don't know whether that's making it more complicated for the students as well,
Yeah.
because I have like things that other people aren't doing in classes. I use badges a lot, and try to get them to understand that things that you do well, you're going to get rewarded for, and I'm trying to have sort of positive reinforcement of their the things that they're doing in class. But the basic thing is, and I kind of lost my train of thought there. What was I going to say?
We add points.
Yeah, I add. Just that it's additive, right? So if they and what I've what I've done with deadlines for my class is that I call them power ups. All right, so if they hit the deadline, the assignment powers up, and it's worth double points.
Yeah.
Right. And they also get unlimited revisions to that assignment, right? If they get after that, they get the basic score, and then they don't get the opportunity to revise that unless they have some other perk that they earn throughout the semester. Because I have, different badges that they can earn that say, okay, you can revise an assignment that you didn't power up or something like that. So I have this sort of setup so that there's an incentive for the students to get the work in on time, because that was definitely an issue. Like, they would want to hand stuff in late and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, yeah, okay, go ahead, hand it in, but I'm not going to get, essentially, if you really look at it, if I was subtracting points, it would be if you hit the deadline, you get full points, and if you miss the deadline, you get half points. So functionally, that's what's going on there, and so that makes it, it just turns it so that it's looking at it as additive rather than subtractive.
Yeah.
I understand.
And hopefully that gives the students a better feeling about what they're learning, because what I'm trying to do is get them to take creative risks. Right, and try things that they might not have tried before. So even if it's very drafty, well, hand it in anyway. If your assignment isn't complete, still hand it in, and then you'll be able to revise it based on the feedback that you get. Yeah. What I'm faced with, particularly in this semester, with this class with the only 5 students in attendance, is that they're not even handing in anything.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it's compounded, so it's not just about attendance.
Too.
It's like they're just not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I give them, and we have talked, I think off podcast several times about Adobe's policies and all that kind of stuff. And it's made it really prohibitive for students to own their own software. Right, it's extremely expensive, and some students can afford it, some can't. So one of the things that I've been doing in the design class is giving them a generous amount of time in class to work on assignments, particularly in the first half of the semester, right? And students would look at that time and not do the things that I was asking them to do. They would, rather than trying to work with the Photoshop and ask questions about Photoshop and that kind of stuff, they would do the readings during the class time, or they would leave class, a half an hour early because we weren't doing anything, right? And I'm like, you guys want more time in class to work, but you're not
taking
that.
To do
So, but I don't. At the same time, I don't want to just be the warden,
right?
Right, and sort of say you're a prisoner in my class, right? That whole attitude, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to make it so that it's flexible and accommodating, and I don't want them to feel like they have no choices in this. But unfortunately, it seems like this semester in particular, they're making lots of bad choices about my class, and it's a puzzle that I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I think this semester, I will do a survey at the end, just a small short survey, and then you could even frame it to the students of like, I'm trying to figure out if this is working or if I need to change the setup of my classes. So I will love to get your opinion on things.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's, a short anonymous survey, they'll be comfortable opening up and leaving some good feedback on it.
Yeah, survey or focus group or something, or have somebody else come in to ask them that if you don't want to do it, or
And I actually, this is making me think because I used to do this routinely at midterms. Like I would say, give the students like an anonymous assignment and say, okay, well, what's going well, what's not going well, how can we fix the class for the second half of the semester, that kind of stuff. And that kind of fell off, and to be honest, I forgot about that. I used to do that until right now. But the concern that I have though is that, like with the survey and the focus group, is that it basically assumes that the students are going to show up and respond, right? If they're not coming to class, if I only have 5 out of 15 people, I'm only going to get
you're going to get
the 5 people
who are actively attending,
and they're going to say everything's great.
Yeah. But do we know that?
But
Right.
we don't know
That's
that.
the cool thing about research.
Yeah.
Like we don't know. So
Right. And that's what I would say
Right.
to my students. All the time is like, well, how do you like point to something that tells me that everything is going okay?
Sure.
I mean, for the 5 people that have been attending class, I can see that in their grades and the assignments that they're handing in, right? So, I mean, there's evidence that they're doing things, and who stays after class to ask questions and that kind of stuff. So I have these sort of anecdotal things, but it's not been formalized. But what you're saying is absolutely right.
Because the question you can always ask other people is, if you were, I don't know, like a bird's eye view in the class, what do you feel other people feel about this course, or feel about the badges, or feel about the assignments, or feel about this? Like, take yourself out of that position, right? And kind of like, in a way, be curious about other people, maybe the people who haven't been coming to class. I mean, there's ways that we could phrase this.
Yeah,
right? Or you could phrase this.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot there that I have to investigate more. And it is, I'm trying to kind of puzzle through this, and I appreciate the two of you kind of
session here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what we're trying to do, is come up with some sort of a creative solution that's going to help to solve a problem, right? And this is part of what creativity is about, is just sort of thinking it through and trying to come up with something that's going to improve this next situation, or
Thank you so much for that wonderful reminder that creativity is everywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all over. It's all over the place.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're about out of time, and I really appreciate you guys indulging me in this conversation, because I think it's really helpful for me to talk it out. And hopefully at some point I'll come to some sort of a realization that maybe what I'm doing needs to be fixed, or how I might fix it. But I'm kind of at a loss as of this week.
I think right now, very quickly, it seems like you went to an extreme.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of you figuring out what that middle ground is going to be.
Yeah.
And what really is going to work, because it's not one or necessarily the other.
Right.
You did the big stuff, right? Like you acknowledged it, you knew there was an issue, right? And then 2 is just talking it out.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we just don't have the space or room or time to just talk something out. So
Yeah.
No, this is great. And then now solutions, right?
Right.
From there.
Well, thanks everybody for listening in to our podcast. As usual, we are accepting input and feedback and suggestions for future topics and that sort of thing for the rest of the year for our season 2. Our email address is creativejpodcast@gmail.com, and you can always get in touch with us there. We're also, I'm going to put in a little plug. We're looking for a student intern to help us promote the show. And hopefully help us with some of our, getting new guests and maybe helping Jay in the control room with sort of producing and that sort of thing. So a lot of opportunity for students to do an internship with us. Right now it would be for credit, but there is possibilities that we might have very small stipends that we can sort of float to students who are budget conscious and that sort of thing, and who isn't at this point. But thank you all for listening in, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew, for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Creative Journeys is a podcast produced at Southern Connecticut State University by faculty, students, and staff who are interested in exploring our creative potential.